Meeting is being live streamed. Stay it.
Got it. Got it.
Meeting is being live streamed. Stay it.
Got it. Got it.
All right, so we're rocking.
What's up, gents?
What's up, folks?
I'll give a little intros here. I'm Skelly with 710 Labs. I help with the creative direction as well as some of the extraction standard operating procedures, the innovation, and the quality control. Above me, we have Scott from Sexual Chocolate Factory, great breeder extraordinaire. And below me, we have John with High Times. And we're just going to have a discussion about cannabis and THC percentage and stuff like that. So let's just start off with, can you introduce yourselves and tell us about your first dab?
Sure. Scott, you want to go first?
Yeah, my name's Scott. I'm with Sexual Chocolate Factory. We just got hard focused on breeding, but we're old school black market for a long ass time, doing everything in the spectrum of cannabis. And I wear all the hats. I do everything: creative, janitor, all of it, breeding, all of it. But yeah. John?
Sure. What's up, guys? Y'all in the chat might recognize me from the last one. I am just a stoner writer. I work at High Times. I currently run the department on the media side. And yeah, big fan of what these guys do and excited to be back here talking with you guys about my annoyances with the marketplace. I'm sure I speak for both of you when I say that a lot of these fallacies and misinformation that's running the market right now is a result of compound problems that are actually causing unforeseen issues for all of us, such as losing more exciting phenos because for the sake of THC percentage. So I'm excited that more people are hearing this and hopefully acting on this information.
Yeah, don't go by THC numbers. Go by what you like.
100%. Tell me a bit about both of your first dabs.
Oh, right. First dab.
John,
Scott, you go first.
Oh, dude, I was just talking about this. First dab was about like 2006. I ran into an old high school buddy and he was like, check this out, man. I got this stuff I made from flowers, and I knew about hash, temple balls and stuff like that, but I've never seen, what is it? BHO dabs shatter at that time. And he introduced it to me. And the first time I hit the dab, it was just in another universe. It's crazy. And yeah, that was 2006, man. That was a break. Now the how everything has progressed and how it's refined, it's amazing. It's crazy, man. The expressions of the hash nowadays it's mind-blowing.
Well, it's crazy to think about back then, like that that it's even the same thing. Like I remember, like when I was in college was the first time I dabbed. I don't remember what year. I was in college from 2007, 2011. So somewhere in there, someone showed me butane hash oil. I had no idea. I remember, like, I wish I knew back in the day how dangerous this shit was, because like we would be smoking cigarettes in somebody's garage while they were blasting butane and like not thinking anything weird of it. And thank God we all made it out alive. But the first dab that I ripped, like now I wouldn't even consume if somebody tried to give it to me. You know what I mean? Like that sticky, gross, like almost like not black, but like dark brown sap. I almost threw up. And it was like on, I don't think it was even titanium at that. Maybe it was titanium. It was on like a nail, but it was like I don't know, like it had like I don't even know what the fuck the thing is called. It had some sort of like roof thing that like also went on top of it, but not like the fancy versions we have today. And I remember hating it immediately. But shortly after that, I learned about vape pens and like how I could like, especially when I was living in New York City at the time. So that like I was working at STS9 show and they were from Colorado and they brought out vape pens and they were like, oh, you ever tried this? And I was like, oh my God, this is the same shit. Like this is so much more of an enjoyable experience. And from then on, I was like, all right, now I understand. I want to get more and more into this game.
Yeah, no, I was hooked. I was hooked.
All right, amazing. So Scott, when you're buying flower or hash, what do you look for generally?
First thing that hits me is first thing that I care about that hits me is the nose, the expressions, the different layers, and taste. That's the main thing. That's where I think everything's going to be eventually. It's going to be a lot more appreciated and there's going to be a lot more tasty flavors available. But yeah, that's the most important thing to me, flavor.
John, what do you think?
So I think you hit the nail on the head with the nose is the first thing that pops to me. Like if it punches you in the face out of the jar, like that's the kind of thing that excites me. I will say to that point, the thing that I'm looking for is the flavor to transfer. And I'm finding less and less in today's game are actually transferring that flavor. So it's hard to tell. Sorry, say that again.
No, I was saying that's exactly what I meant by strain, like more flavor, strains with more flavor eventually, Yeah.
So that's
exactly my point. You hit it.
That to me is the real measure of quality right now. How much you can taste it. Like, guess how well the ash stays together and everything, but like how much the flavor is actually transferring through. Because like it's one thing to have smelly buds. And like, listen, I don't know if people are spraying terps on shit. I don't know, whatever, but like I'm smelling a bunch of things that like smell crazy potent and like maybe even a little bit more chemical than it used to. But it doesn't transfer to the flavor. And so when that happens, that's like okay, boom, I want to smoke this again.
Yeah, that's
how it's seen.
Yeah.
We just heard in the office today about a company that's spraying some of their stuff with artificial, or I guess not even artificial, organic terpenes, but from other plants onto weed. It's scary out there. Definitely.
I've heard of that too. Yeah, it's a thing right now. So it's causing problems too, with like the synthetic sprays. I'm hearing people out of state getting these bags with these sprays on them and getting sick and shit. So
I'm going to jump right ahead because I think this is important to tie into this. I think the reason we're seeing all of that more is because in the race for THC percentage, people are creating these more plasticky buds that don't really have the kind of like vibrant aroma and taste that we're used to, because like they're picking all the plants that only like the highest testing THC plant as opposed to the most vibrant. And like this is the compound result of now dulling the flowers for the sake of one specific metric. And as a result, people, because now everyone's got cheap weed, that's a 30% tester. Now people are spraying shit on it and trying to like create all sorts of other shit to make it stand out because they're in a sea of bullshit, Yeah.
No, eventually everybody will understand and appreciate what they like, and they won't need to ask a bud tender or somebody what to recommend. And you just know what you like and you know what works for you. And this all ties into the Indica Sativa thing. Everybody reacts differently to everything. And that's the beauty of, being an individual and the spice of life. How I react to an OG is going to be different to how it's going to react to Skelly, how it's going to react to John. So you really just got to go out there, stick your neck out and like try stuff and see what works for you, because those percentages don't tell you anything. Indica Sativa doesn't tell you anything. I mean, just to, I'm no expert. I just checked on some, I Googled Sativa and Indica, and I just found out that the term was coined by some French naturalist in 1975. So it just was coined like just recently, and determine plants that got you high versus plants that were more fibrous and were industrial hemp. So
Do you know what indica and sativa actually mean
w-
in
no,
Latin?
no, I don't. No.
So in Latin, sativa means cultivated and
Mhm.
indica means of India. So cannabis sativa, which is why hemp is cannabis sativa, that's like a big umbrella for all of
Right.
this shit,
That
right?
explains everybody.
And then
It's the
cannabis
cannabis
indica
umbrella.
was them trying in the 70s or whenever to specify, like, okay, look, this is the stuff from the Afghan region, right? Like from where like the Kush Mountains are. And so
Right.
like
Exactly. Yeah.
again, this is all like compounded misinformation that like we get a little bit of, and because we want to seem smart and because we want to educate our consumers and because we want to like the indica sativa and THC percentage thing is all a desire to give the end user some form of metric or understanding of what the end product is going to be, what their effect of this product is going to be. And because of that, we want to simplify things. So actually, Scott, first of all, I want to say I love that you just jumped into the indica sativa too, because like I was worried that I was jumping ahead of myself, and now we're like all mashed into the fucking pot, and I feel akin to this, right? So we have been at High Times doing this kind of open conversation with this section we have called Weirdos about indica. Jimmy Devine started it for us, and it's called Indica and Sativa Are for Dummies. And obviously, we try and be a little inflammatory with weirdos, just like, get clicks, get people talking, whatever. But the purpose of it was, we know that these terms aren't accurate anymore. So why are we still using them?
Right.
Jimmy argued in his first piece that like we should be talking about where these plants come from. So Afghani and equatorial were his first solutions for the indica sativa problem. My latest piece was, I think we're making this too complicated. And it was maybe instead of saying where they originated from, because first of all, nothing is coming from the Hindu Mountains anymore, most of the stuff that we're consuming in California. And we know it's all like to some degree hybridized, right? So what if, because we're trying to talk about what the effect is going to feel like, what if we say stimulating versus sedative, right? Because like one is going to like not necessarily like wake you up or give you energy, but kind of like get you high. And the other one is going to like that in the couch stoned feeling, right? And like that way we can start talking in vernacular that the consumer understands, as opposed to trying to like say, hey, first you got to understand these words and what they mean, and then you'll start to understand how the weed's going to make you feel. But it's such a mixed bag for everyone, like you said, that like we're not at a point of understanding yet where we can really say this one is going to make you, super lethargic, and this one is going to take away your anxiety in this way. We're like years away from understanding the full, I don't know how to say this word properly, chemography, chemical makeup, that's the word I'm trying to say, of cannabis, right? We know about terpenes, and so now I say this with respect because I think we all need to be thinking about terpenes, but that's not the end of the conversation either. As Max said in the last stream, we know we have phenols and ethers and all this other stuff that's involved in the chemical makeup of the plant that is going to dictate where you're going. So to say something as simple as this is indica or sativa is to make black or white a conversation that's really a color scale, right? Further, and Todd McCormick said this, and I'm trying to convince him to write a piece for us right now, but he responded to my last piece that actually, depending on where you harvest plants in the cycle, you can actually dial in that stimulating or sedating effect based on how long you let it flower, right? So for some people, you can have a blue dream, but if you cut it really early, it might be super down. You know what I mean? And like maybe I'm saying that the back, vice versa.
Well, and you hit it on the head again, that plants taken in different times of their life react differently. So just like you said, if you take it on early, it hasn't developed everything yet. So you're not going to get the full effect, or you're going to have a different effect. Whatever that full effect is, it's going to be different from the fully matured plant or even over-ripened plant, which is what I like. I like going 77 days. Now I'm on that 11-week shit. I like those overripe fruits.
Well, then let's talk. So the reason why a lot of the market won't see those fruits is because you can control your room, right? Most of the scale guys won't let plants go that long because they're trying to get in as many cycles as they can a year. So like that's the reason we're not seeing as many quote unquote sativas in the market. But if we're going to
we'll see that too.
But if we're gonna call something a sativa, right? Like, shouldn't we also say harvested at this point in the cycle? And obviously, that's gonna change from strain to strain. So, like, it's not a perfect method either way. It's just trying to dumb down a very complex issue to say, oh, this is one or the other, as opposed to this is somewhere in the blue purple area.
Yeah.
And I agree with some of that. I'm interested to hear what converts into what on the chemical scale that creates those different highs throughout, because I know that there's the terpene signature that's almost like a fingerprint that emerges in the trichome. The trichome is excreted, it's a semi-permeable membrane, and the ratios within it are very similar early as they are late. But we know that there are some different conversions of some cannabinoids into others later in the process. So that makes sense. But I don't know too much about it. Cool.
Well, then there's also the guys who like the Ganjier, I think Ganjier guys, or maybe it's I don't know who it is, but all these people are trying to age hash now and think that like if you make like age hash, like you age wine for a certain time, you'll be able to create different expressions of the trichomes through preserving it over time. So like again, the science for all this stuff is still so early because we've been in the shadows. And so it was like literally like drug dealers in trench coats being like, yeah, this is an indica. And we all just kind of like went with it and passed it down the line because we wanted to seem like we knew what the fuck was up, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as the science develops, it will be cool to get more of that data of this is THC converting to THCV at this point in the cycle, or this point once it's been dried. Okay, so back into some questions. I'll start, John.
So maybe actually let's use that opportunity to talk about THC percentage a little bit more, because I don't know that we like actually got to this point. THC percentage has been regarded as this metric of quality or potency in the marketplace. And as we were talking about indica and sativa oversimplifying a problem, that's the same thing that's happening with THC percentage, but it's causing all of these extra side problems because people think that that's the only thing that matters now, right? We have brands that are like, and I don't want to say anyone's necessarily like shaking down labs, but labs know that they'll lose business if they provide tests that are under a certain number. And also, if you get a test that's under a certain number and you say, hey, we're going to go get it somewhere, test it somewhere else, that same lab might all of a sudden pull a test out of thin air that has a higher number on it. You know what I mean? So we're ending up having the consumer at the store thinking that they're buying something based on a quality metric, which is actually like who can cheat the system the best, you know? And again, saying that we just want THC is like saying, hey, we want distillate vape pens for like that's the experience that we're looking for when we smoke cannabis. You know what I mean? Just that like weird, wiry diet high. And I think I could
isolating THC basically and not getting anything else. You know, and we're not even anywhere near the entourage effect right now, because the temps and everything that we're hitting stuff at, like dabbing and all that, all the terps that create those effects are annihilated above 300 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, we're about to learn a lot, and it's going to be a fun journey.
Yeah. And what you're saying is very accurate, John. There's a whole game underneath what's going on when it comes to all these labs. And you have this 10% differential that you can report on. You could get the same flower tested at 5 different places, get completely different results. And I'm proud to say that we've never played those lab games.
Well, you know what? And the thing I'll say that I noticed, the ones that I really believe have the highest percentage THC are the buds that I see that look the most like plastic. Like, yes, they look covered in trichomes. You just can't smell anything. You know what I mean? Like when it breaks up, it doesn't produce aroma because all of that energy. And I don't care. I know, and Scott, you might argue with me about this, but like I know that people say like you're not breeding things out, just whatever, but like you only have 100% of the plant matter. So as one percentage goes up, other things have to shrink in order to make room.
Bro, and that is the same thing with all the stuff that you're saying, all these plasticky plants that you're talking about, strains. That's the balance. The creator, the master, he gives you looks. but he doesn't give you brains. You know what I mean? If you go 99, you know, if you go on full bore 10 tenths on looks, you might have some brains, but you're not going to be, you know, there's those unicorns that have everything, but that's far and few, you know, in between. So like, yeah,
You're a unicorn to me, Scott.
no, thank you. You're a
So
No,
John,
but honestly, that's the thing, right? Like, and I think that honestly, I do think that Instagram has kind of fucked people's mentality up too, where like they think that like the shit only has to look good in marketing because like the consumer doesn't actually have to get to smell it or taste it before they buy it. But like, and like we could thank COVID for that and like all these new restrictions, but the consumer is going to handle this. They're going to consume it. So even if you can get it past them once, like you think you're going to maintain a consumer by pushing them something that looks beautiful but doesn't hit, like maybe you'll take a picture, put it on your fucking shelf or something, but like nah, I want something that's gonna, like, I buy weed to get high. I can't pay these prices to fucking look cool, you know?
Yeah, no, for me, I think a lot of the strains nowadays, they pretty much get you high. There's, you know, there's definitely some strains that don't, but for the majority of the strains that are worth buying or looking at, they get you high, but the thing is the flavor. And that's where that balance comes in. You know, everybody's all about those numbers and the bag appeal, that visual. So they're not concerned about the flavor so much because you're not going to get that. You've got to have that balance. And that's why you never see me talking about colors or anything. I only talk about flavors. I don't care what any strain looks like. The only thing that matters is what it tastes like in the joint, what it tastes like, you know, in a dab. And soon enough, people will start to understand and appreciate these things. You know, I always use the analogy of we're in that chicken McNugget era of cannabis right now. We're in the infancy where our consumers they don't care where the chicken McNugget is on the chicken. But soon enough, that market became educated, and now everybody's concerned about how far their food traveled, where, you know, how long has
Well, it's also just the value conversation, right? Like not all $60 eighths at the dispensary today are worth $60, right?
No,
and like
absolutely.
once people understand more of like this is what I could be getting for this money, or this is what I should be getting for this money, like that's a what was I was watching something and somebody was talking about like the first, like the three stages that a new market goes through when people are like, when something like comes off of prohibition or like is introduced to the market. And the first is access. The first stage, people are just excited that they can get the process, right? The second stage is when people understand what they should be getting for their money, right? And like it's like if you were a high schooler and you're trying to get fucked up, right? You might go to like grain alcohol first because you're like, oh, this is the highest proof, it's going to super fuck me up. You get fucked up from that too much once and throw up, and you're like, okay, I'm never drinking that again. And then you might be on call liquor, right? And then you start understanding that things are better. But the third step is when people are like, okay, and they start to get snobby about their shit. And I don't want to say like snobby in like a negative way, but like where
ride or die,
all the things you were talking about, like how much was produced, where it came from, where all of that becomes like integrally important. Yes. And now we're in the race to the bottom phase right now, right? So like there's going to be a lot of pain before we get to stage 3 in this process.
The correctioning is there.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I said the correctioning will happen soon. You know, it's everybody's got their hands in the pot right now. Karens, freaking Joe Schmoes, everybody heard that, hey, there's some money hitting over here. Everybody's doing it. But once they're not able to pay their expenses and shit, then the real ones will shine. And soon enough, the appreciation for what we're doing and the general consumer will have more appreciation for the product itself. You know, instead of just being like a hobbyist every once in a while, they're going to get more into it and they're going to start looking for those things and to get more educated. So it's going to happen, but it's going to organically happen. But
well, yeah. So, and like, I mean, listen, we're already seeing the movement now, right? Like, I don't know if 10 years ago, like the way that 710 is operating today, could exist that way 5-10 years ago, right?
No, yeah.
So where they're going to be in 10-20 years when the whole world understands that, like, okay, there's like this like upper echelon of hash versus just like, you know, the cheap shit you can get at any corner store. Like that's an evolution that like the world is going to go through. Now we are starting to see, and the thing that I keep trying to remind people is like, for all of the $100 packs that exist right now, there are more people than ever that are paying things like $1,200 or $1,000 an ounce for premium bud, right? Like
Right. That
5
didn't
years
exist
ago,
back then.
exactly 5 years ago. No, right now. Like,
No, I'm saying like $1,000 ounces didn't even exist in the best heydays of back then. Now you've got,
exactly.
you know, XYZ getting 1,500 an ounce. You know what I mean? That's fucking bananas. But
Especially while
it's a
pounds are
thing.
selling next door for 300. You know what I
Right?
mean?
Yeah, it's a thing, man. It's a beautiful thing, man. You know, people are getting appreciated. You know, you've got like $50,000, $100,000 bottles of wines and shit, even $1 million. So why
Well,
can't
you know what's funny? When Jay-Z's brand first came out, a bunch of people were like, oh, like this is crazy and should be whatever. And like the question that I always pose to them is like, do you think Ace of Spades is a connoisseur brand, or is it like a status whore brand? Right? Like it's for people who want like the gold bottle to come out with the sparklers in the club. Like that's really who Ace of Spades is made for, right? So why won't that exist in cannabis too? Like, why won't there be a brand that's like bougie for the sake of bougie and like doesn't even supply great product? They just like have all the fucking bells and whistles. Like once this market matures, all of this stuff is going to be fair game. There's all gonna, like Walmart ain't going to own all of it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's gonna, all the different angles and markets will have appreciation, just like how still people drink Miller, you know, MGD and Coors Light, but there's all these great IPAs, small microbrews or whatever, and they're hitting hard and they're doing well. But none of this shit would have existed 20 years ago. It was only MGD, Coors, Coronas, Heinekens, but now you got like so much variety, your fucking head can explode. So soon enough, cannabis will get there, but it's going to take some work and, you know, some time. Basically, it's just time. People will eventually get more into what they're doing. Like right now, when you go to a party, yeah, we're in the game, so cannabis is our thing. But 99% of my folks aren't like, yo, we're going over to the poker game. Let's go stop by the dispensary and grab a fucking half ounce or some edibles or whatever. They're like, no, let's go to the fucking grocery store, grab some bottles, some wine or some, you know, some cognac or some whiskey. The mentality's not there. So soon enough, when all these hobbyists and weekend warriors are like, you know what, smoking weed is actually better and nice, you know, it's nice on my mind, you know, compared to alcohol. I'm like, fuck, feeling like
It's
shit
also
the
funny to
following
say
day.
this.
I'm like wanting to beat on people. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, it's funny to say this from California too, where like cannabis has become so normalized in our society, but like I'm from New York, and like even just the last 2 years in New York, cannabis has like kind of changed the conversation in a major way. But we didn't have dispensaries for a long time, right? So people like my mom's friends never asked about weed. Now everyone's like, hey, have you heard of that can thing? Like, oh, what's that like little like microdose edible? You know what I mean? Like that's, again, we're so still, and this like NFTs kind of like destroyed this phrase for me. So like I feel like a sucker saying this, but like we're still so early in this process that like it's, while for even for like the vets here, like the game is going to change so much in the next 5 years that like for people that are just getting in and just starting, like you're seeing like the new world. You know what I mean? Again, if you saw the hash I smoked when I first started, you might not have looked at hash again. You know what I mean?
And here's the crazy thing, and I just had the discussion with somebody else, is like we're talking about like all the fun stuff that we're doing to entertain ourselves, but wait until the real serious minds that are afraid of the federal legalities, you know, they don't want to touch this shit, but they're the ones that are able to unlock crazy shit, you know, things that are going to cure things that we haven't had a, you know, solution for however many years, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of things that cannabis can do on so many levels. Industrial, you know, what is it? Henry Ford's cars, I think where his like earlier cars were all hemp-based plastics. So yeah, I mean, the powers that be don't want it, but it's going to push through. And you know, if the real smart people can get on this and unlock these formulas.
So I went to the Hemp Expo while I was in Thailand, and bro, these guys are doing everything with hemp. Like, yes, you know about clothes and textiles and hempcrete and all this shit. These guys have ice cream. They have fucking like all the plastics, like all the way, right? Like they got roller skates with it. Like they got like you want a hemp skateboard, full deal hemp. You know what I mean? And like honestly, I'm excited for that, like to become more of the conversation, because I think actually, and I know hemp. I think last year became the 5th highest grossing American crop. So like, you know, the conversation over the next few years will change. But again, it's like, think about how like 10 years ago, like where the iPhone was versus where the iPhone is, or where a smartphone was versus where the iPhone is today. You know what I mean? Like all of this shit, once it hits, the speed of increase and innovation happens at a crazy extent. And like, listen, somebody sent me a fucking laser bong. You know what I mean? So like people are already trying to do like the craziest, weirdest things. I mean, not for nothing, like the proxy, this is like the coolest, like now hash is everywhere. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Again, I think that like while a lot of these conversations like the Indica and Sativa thing and THC percentage are important to be having and spreading the awareness, like I also am not ignorant enough to think that like we have a perfect answer yet, just that these conversations need to keep happening so that people understand that like this is not a perfect system. You know, we're trying.
Yeah.
Let's I got a little question. What's the wildest thing someone has ever tried to convince you about cannabis, John?
Probably that it cures COVID.
COVID.
That was that like, I'll be honest, it was a fun story. You know what I mean? Like when it first started popping out, like we were all in lockdown and just so desperate. And like there were like these studies coming out of Israel that was like, oh my God, like COVID could whatever. But like then if you actually like read into any of the studies, like it was like the off chance of like could help with treatment, whatever. I will say I smoke a hell of a lot of weed and I still have not gotten COVID. So I don't know that it's actually the craziest thing in the world, but I think it's crazy to think that my obsession also magically protected me from this worldwide pandemic.
Scott, same question.
Just recently, I ran into this master grower of 200,000 square feet of black market grow, and he had some buds that had some bleaching on the tips. And when I was checking it out, he's like, oh yeah, no, that's because we have our lights really close to the flower, and what it does is it creates flowers, you know, buds that are stronger, it gets you more high. And this guy is running a fucking 200,000 square foot facility, and he's telling me this. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. What?
I remember like looking at those pictures on like early Google days, like, oh my God, the white buds, like, what do they do?
Yeah, like, damn, those are rare. That's the albino buds, dude.
I'll answer my own question. The wildest thing someone convinced me, it was when I was like a freshman in high school. Older brother's friend, Andrew Wagner's older brother, Jamie Wagner, he convinced us that the red hairs get you the highest on the plant, just the little pistils. And somehow he had access to just bags of these red hairs. It must have been some sort of trimming operation. And he sold all of us just literally just dime bags, just the red hairs, no buds.
I gotta be honest, I feel like the work he went through to just get those red hairs is almost
deserved the
worth
money.
whatever he charged you.
It was wild, true story.
When I was a kid, I believe the little polyps in the like in between the whatever, like those were like the sweet sacks of THC. So like I still to this day, like those come off of every stem I pluck.
Yeah, I've definitely smoked some joints and blunts rolled solely of them by growers, and they were some enjoyable smokes.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, I know. Shout out Unrivaled. Unrivaled actually saves for his head stash every little piece of that, and he'll have little bags just of those, and he'll roll just a straight joint or blunt of those.
That's
Shout
like that's the little nugs nug.
Little grower's treat left behind at the end. So Scott, when you're looking for keepers, is THC a part of the breeding process?
Only because the THC gland, the trichome gland, contains the resin, and that's what I care most about, is how it smells first and how it translates. That's very important. John made a great point right there. That's exactly my main concern, is when I say I'm looking for flavor, it needs to translate from what you smell in your nose to the flavor onto your tongue. Exactly what you smell on that plant when it's live, or when it's cured flower, or in the, in a concentrate form. You want that flavor to translate onto your palate, because that's what it's all about, man. I mean, for me, that's what it's all about.
If it stains your palate and you like walk away and are still tasting it like a few minutes later, and you're like, fuck, I want to smoke that again, like that also. And like, obviously I'm not a cultivator, so I don't want to sound like an asshole, but like, to me, like that, like if you have that, that's got to be the like, oh, I'm gonna make money on this because they're gonna keep coming back. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that flavor's there. Like once you put it out, you're like, fuck, I need another one.
For me, I'm just so excited about the flavor. Like, yeah, no, but yeah.
John, tell us a little bit about the market in Thailand and your recent trip there.
Okay, so the markets in Thailand are fucking crazy, bro. First of all, like I don't know if you guys have ever been to Asia, but apparently this is an Asian thing where they just have malls where like everything is like on different floors, but like there'll be 50 of the same thing next to each other. So like you'll want like to get a cell phone, there's like 100 cell phone shops right next to each other. You want jewelry, there's like a floor of like, this is the gold section, this is the silver section, this is the gem section. It's fucking bonkers. I don't understand how anyone 3 feet from the door gets any business, because it's literally like, hey, look, here's all of the things you need. Why would you go all the way down there? But whatever, besides the point. The market is fun because, first of all, it's 30 baht translates to $1 there. So like you can get a ton of cool shit. Like I got these awesome pants and like it cost me like $3. And like still like you're in the market, so you could haggle for it. You know what I mean? And like again, it's $3. So like most of the time I'm just like, here you go. But like sometimes it'd be like just for fun, like, oh, they want 500 baht, like 400 baht, 450. Okay, whatever. I got 50 baht off. There you go. And that's like literally get $1.25 off. But still, it's just, it's the experience. But there's food everywhere. There's their weed. Okay, so I started saying this before. I don't know if I said this on stream, but back in the day, there used to be pharmacies everywhere where they would like sell like benzos and all sorts of shit. You didn't need a prescription. You could just go in and buy whatever you want. All of those dispensaries or all of those pharmacies are now dispensaries. And not only are they dispensaries, but like on the street to get to them, there's at least 2 or 3 stands selling weed and an ice cream truck that's been retrofitted to be like a weed truck. So like it's wild. Most of the shit is mids. You're like hard pressed to find trichomes, and it is a little bit different here. And no offense, Skel, I know that you guys are rec market, but like it's very different than it is in the market here, where like you could find even better stuff on the traditional market than you can find in the rec market. Over there, the stuff on the rec market is like the good shit, even if they're importing, which they'll never admit. I got one store to admit, like, he's like, oh, I grew this. I was like, oh, sick. Like in Thailand. And he was like, so like, whatever. And okay, this is also something I should say. A lot of people who've been working on like the mega farms in California, like in fucking at Natura and at Glass House and stuff like that, like there were immigrants from Thailand who now took what they learned over the last 2 or 3 years and are applying it in their own country, right? So they're very soon going to be in the supply outpacing demand conversation. Again, I mentioned earlier, like it's $30 a gram there. So like people are, here's the other thing. in Thailand, because it's so humid and hot, like a lot of like the greenhouses out there grow strawberries. They sell like 8 to 12 strawberries for like in like 50 euro boxes. It's fucking crazy. Most of those guys are now, or not most, but a lot of those guys are now flipping to cannabis because it's like slightly a better margin. Even though I think it's crazy because so they have figured out strawberry is supposed to take a 4-month harvest, right? They have figured out how to shrink that process into 2 months because the energy there is so expensive and they need to save those costs. So they've already figured out how to shrink the process on cannabis about 30%, but they're trying to go even harder on that. And now when you talk about like scale manufacturing and shit like that, obviously that sounds good to investors, but when we're talking about something we got to consume like strawberries or fucking cannabis, usually you worry about it. I can tell you these strawberries they grew in half the time were fucking delicious. So like while I haven't smoked any of that specific weed yet, I am very excited to see what they do because it's not like here where it's like this is necessary just for our bottom line. It's like this is necessary because energy is so expensive that it might cost double the price if we have to keep it going, an extra few months, So it's really wild. It's still early, but another thing for everyone listening who might want a new career opportunity, especially if you've got a little money tucked away, it only costs 15 grand to set up a dispensary out there right now. And that's like a regular, like moderate dispensary. The high end ones cost about $50,000. It is wild. They look like Apple stores. Some of them have like grows in the actual shop. High Rise actually just released a 30-minute documentary about our trip out there, and you could see some of them. But like literally like high end ones, we asked them like how much it costs, and they were like, oh, about 50,000. Like fucking bonkers. So again, it's definitely going to be the word is definitely out there. People from all over the world were already there trying to capitalize on the cannabis opportunity. Cookies is already getting set up.
Bro,
but again,
my boy, he just hit me on the fucking signal telling me, yo, man, they're talking about Thailand on the live. The homie that I told you about said that he can get XYZ for packs in Thailand. Shout out, partner. How you doing, brother? But yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
He's out there trying to fucking bug me to go out there and make some moves out in Thailand too. So yeah,
dude, honestly, like, so I was there about 10 years ago, and the culture, like back then, like they would like really throw you in jail for weed. So like the fact that they are throwing themselves at it so hard is like kind of like it did feel a little bit weird. Like I did kind of feel like I was about to get entrapped. You know what I mean? Where they're like, "Oh yeah, here's weed, come smoke it, come smoke it. By the way, you're never getting out of jail." But thankfully that didn't happen. I will say, some people
invited. You guys smoke on the airport, bro. Didn't you guys smoke when you landed on the fucking airport?
Bro, we smoked okay. So
that's pretty ballsy right there.
Well, I will say you guys know me and how much I consume. For those watching at home, this is like the longest the flight there was the longest I had gone without smoking, and I don't even remember how long. So like I called the people who we were seeing beforehand, and I was like, listen, like I'm not trying to be a prima donna, but like, and I'm not talking for the group, I'm only talking for myself, but like I might not be a very nice person when I get off this plane because I'll be like, having not gotten high for a while.
I hear you.
They were like, okay, no problem. We'll bring something in the airport. I was not expecting to smoke the blunt before we left the airport. However, what I totally was expecting was we finished that blunt. We were like, okay, sick. Can we roll up another one? They were like, what do you mean? Like that was all we brought. Like we were like, what? Like we need like 10 times more than that immediately. Come on. So they called somebody, and like en route to the first stop, they met us with more weed, and then like we smoked 2 more blunts as soon as we got to where we were going.
Amazing
story.
Sounds like fun. Scott, what's your favorite traveling experience with smoking? With just smoking in another country? What was your favorite experience?
I mean, my favorite experience traveling smoking is back in the day when all the crazy check fraud stuff was going on. We were doing that out of state, and I went with this homie up to Seattle, and we got some UW, and it was so valuable that, back then we were doing well and we had money, but we lost this bag at a gas stop, and we're 2 hours away. Rather than just stay home where we're at and buy new shit, we fucking backtracked 2 hours back and looked in this garage, in this gas station, and found the bag in the trash because the homie fucking chucked it when he was emptying out his section where he was sitting. So he threw out the fucking bag. So instead of just buying new weed, we drove all the way back and found that shit in the trash. And that's my brother Noel. He just passed last year. I did a strain for him, which is the UW times Rick James. So yeah, it means a lot to me.
Can't wait to try that one.
Fuck yeah.
All right, guys. Well, if you stuck with us, thank you. Thank you to John. Thank you to Scott. As
Thanks,
always.
everybody. Thank you.
This one made a little bit more sense, right?
A little bit more.